I started this podcast because I'm fascinated by how we get better at bridge, how we reach that next level. I'm talking with expert players about how they got where they are and what they do to continue honing their skills, to less experienced players about what they're doing to improve their game, and to experts in fields outside of bridge, like learning and expertise. If you're looking to level up your game, check out my classes on Learn Bridge Online. Mondays are about the expert thought process, and Thursdays are about declare a play. You can attend the classes live or you can watch the recorded replay. I'm looking forward to leveling up together. I'm joined today by Ralph Katz. Ralph, thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi, Adam. Happy to be here.
All right, let's start with how did you learn bridge?
I used to play a lot of sports during the summer, and there was one rainy day, and I went over to my cousin's house, and my uncle was teaching his two kids how to play bridge, and so I loved it. So that's how it all got started. If it didn't rain, I don't know if I would have taken it up.
What was it as a kid that caught your attention?
Well, I wasn't a kid. I was 16. I mean, I loved the competitive part of the game. It's like we're always learning. And, it was just like a new world. You know, every time I'd play, it was like, oh my God, there's this. Oh, there's this. I could have done this. And it was just super.
When did you realize, all right, I'm probably not going to be a professional athlete, but I could be pretty good at bridge?
I knew I probably wasn't ever going to be a professional athlete. I did have some baseball skills, but I had a lot of injuries also. And I never knew, I mean, it took me a long time to have the confidence to where I thought I was going to get pretty good at bridge.
What did that process look like for you, like getting good?
Well, I think my card play was a little accelerated. I would dream every night if I played bridge that day and review the hands. I'd wake up knowing I should have done this or I should have done that. So that helped me. And I used to play with a whole bunch of different people, so I'd learn some good things, I'd learn some bad things too. And then I started reading a little bit. And I would say, other than club games and the occasional sectional or nearby regional, I didn't start playing a lot till college. So I went to Ohio State. I don't think Mextroff knew I had only about 30, 35 points, but we played some when I lived there. You know, playing with a lot of people helps. Reading helps. One thing Hammond taught me a long time ago, he preaches, don't let the first bad result turn into more bad results. Well, I'm certainly good about letting partners, possible errors go. It's still not really easy for me, but I get over it. Might kind of beat myself up for half a board, and then I'm done with it.
How did you evolve there and get better? Because that seems like a huge skill that a lot of people struggle with, of letting things go.
Well, there's a lot of ways to get better. And, you know, one is it's much better to learn from your mistakes than trying to be right about them. And I see a lot of players top out when they want to be right. Nick and I were interviewed, and we both said this, that when something goes awry on defense or the bidding, the first thing we both do is, what could we have done to help partner? So even if partner did something not so good, it still might be partially your fault. And sometimes you do something that completely fools them and you don't see it until you've discussed it. So one of the things I do preach is, in the bidding and defense, trying to sit on the other side of the table before you make a decision and try and see it from their vantage. For the average player, they have to learn to count. And it has to be sort of like breathing, because you can figure out a lot of things by just working out the shape and then making some educated guesses from all the other clues. The counting has to be like breathing. You know, you don't hold your breath when you're running a race. And if you don't count when you're playing bridge, you really dig yourself into a hole.
How do you develop that? This is one of the things that my students struggle with the most, is counting.
I would suggest, if they're struggling with it, write on their convention card, write in big letters, count, and just keep reminding them to count until it becomes autonomic. Sometimes when you're tired, even the experts get a little lax on that. You got to count. And then it's just using a bunch of possible clues to turn something into, you know, say you start at 50-50, you know, you might get it up to 75, 80% with the clues. That's what the top players do, is they're looking for clues. So you have to kind of deduce things and figure things out and just get that percentage up. But you're not going to go right all the time. And that's where you have to let go on things when you get them wrong.
How did you develop that skill as a younger player of just counting being like breathing?
I didn't. It took me a few years before. I mean, once I would count out of hand here and there, it wasn't like every trick and all the high card points. No, it took a while. I didn't even think about that. And you start reading a Lawrence or a Kelsey book or a Cantor book, and it's like, oh, the light bulb goes on.
What were some of the books that you read early on that really made a difference for you?
Lawrence and Kelsey, after I got through a few Lawrence books. And the Kelsey books were interesting because the first one, like I missed the first 10 hands. And then I was maybe getting 1 out of 3. And by the end of the book, it's sort of like, as soon as I see something, I knew what the problem was. So it's recognition. It's like baseball. I played a lot, but when I was younger, when my son was taking lessons at this Strikes Academy, we both take live batting practice. And I took it for well after he retired from baseball for 25 years. And so I played ball about 7 years ago. They were older. It was a senior league, but most of the pitchers were minor leaguers or college pitchers. And what was cool is as soon as they would let go of the ball, my brain picked up where the ball was going to be right away. I always knew. And that was from seeing just thousands and thousands of curveballs and sliders and various pitches and the spin on the ball. Well, it's sort of like that at bridge. The easier you can recognize positions, and some of that's talent and some of that's repetition, the easier the game's going to be. So that's one of the things like reading does. It's like getting thousands of pitches, curveballs and sliders.
How about knuckleballs? Did you deal with those?
Yeah, I didn't whack a knuckleball frequently, but I would always get a piece of it. But it's a tough pitch.
What's the bridge equivalent of a knuckleball?
Zia, and I don't mean any disrespect, but Zia's knuckleball, we'll say, is dead.
You've had Zia on the nickel team, right, for a little while. What's that like coming back for a compare and having no idea?
He was a wonderful teammate. If something went bad, a lot of times he'd say, yeah, I knew that would happen. Of course you were going to do that. And so, no, he was a lovely teammate, and I like him as a person a lot. We've only played with him a little bit, so we haven't fought at all at the table. But I don't really fight with anybody. Partner has to really come at me to get me stirred up.
Do you read much these days?
A little bit. Nick and I play bridge at night, maybe 3 times a week, to try and stay in practice a little bit. But I hardly ever play any other tournaments other than with him now. I'll play with, my son wants to play locally, I'll play with him, or, a good friend. And I try and get back to Pittsburgh every once in a while. Not as many are around now, unfortunately, but I have a lot of good friends there. And so it's good, every few years to go back to the Pittsburgh Regional and see everybody.
What else do you do between tournaments to keep your game sharp?
Sometimes a little bit of focusing exercises that I've been doing for, since I was 30.
Tell me more about that.
I was born with a convergence problem. So my eyes, when I read, they're on 2 different words. So a lot of people are born that way. Not everybody, but I think a lot of young kids' speaking issues are from that. So I do exercises to help with convergence. The eyes are muscles. The only problem is you need to catch this like when you're young to keep it permanently. So I now have a prism in my right eye to point it inward. The eyes are a gateway to the brain. And I've learned this because of the convergence issue. I got through school without being able to read instructions. Now, if I had known about this, I could have patched an eye, or younger, I could have done the training, but it does make it hard. So now I can converge with this a little bit, but it wears me out to read anything like a novel, more than a few pages. And one of the benefits of having the convergence problem is if it's something I understand, like bridge or baseball, seeing 2 different words at the same time and missing other words, I get enough out of it that I can read it. But in school, it was tough for certain courses.
So what's the focusing exercise?
I mean, I have a ball hanging, I'll toss it and it comes back at me pretty quickly. And if I'm not converging, when I try and catch it, I'm going to get whacked in the face. But that's one of the things. And I still see a behavioral optometrist every couple of months. And we go through exercises just to make sure my eyes stay focused.
Do you think that focus exercising helps with your focus at bridge?
I would think so. I mean, it used to help with sports. When I was doing it seriously, I went from a 25% free throw shooter to about 75%. And I couldn't putt whatsoever. Now with the prism in my eye, if I do go out on the green, I'm just bad. I'm not a four putt person. I sort of joke about it, but it's true. I'd be, putting the old days, I'd be having like an 8-foot putt for, say, a birdie, and my next shot would be a chip shot.
How much of that improvement is physical with the eyes, and how much do you think is mental with focus?
I think it's all related. The physical part is the mental part. I could concentrate all I wanted when I was younger, and I still couldn't putt or shoot a basketball. When I used to go in for a layup, frequently didn't come close to the rim, even though I was maybe a foot and a half away. So it's physical. I think that's important. A lot of people don't realize that. I think a lot of people with ADD, not all of them certainly, the kids especially that are classified with ADD, it's all visual stuff. But what happens is when you expend so much energy to see things, it affects other things, your personality, stress levels, your brain. And so the idea is to get the muscles working well. So I try and keep my eyes in tune, and that helps.
How did you enjoy sports so much if you couldn't concentrate and see and make a layup?
Well, I played a lot of defense in basketball. I love basketball, even though I wasn't very good. I mean, I could play defense and I could get rebounds. I couldn't shoot. But I played a lot of other sports. Baseball was far and away my favorite. And then I played some tennis till I hurt my shoulder. So with the injuries I sustained as a kid, or call it in high school, I mean, bridge still had the competition, and the injuries, I haven't had any playing bridge. Nobody's thrown boards at me or anything like that. I guess you could sustain an injury playing bridge, but it's very unlikely.
What do you do at the bridge table when you feel your focus waning a little bit?
Okay, I stare off and I try and see the space between the screens or the different tables. I make sure I'm not myopic. If the space is closed off a little bit, you're looking down the hallway or, down all the different tables, and you don't see the periphery very much, then you need to shake up your vision. Sometimes it's just being aware of that. That gets me back into focus. So I'll check that a few times a session usually. It truly is important to have your eyes working, whether you're in school or golfing or playing bridge or even driving a car.
Do you think the eyes are a big issue for a lot of bridge players when it comes to focus?
Some, yeah.
Wow. I had never thought of that before. All right, let's go back in time. So you're at Ohio State. You get to play with Mextroth some. And you're starting to get good. You're starting to feel confident at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens next?
Not really a lot of confidence. I mean, I wouldn't say I was completely insecure, but I was around Mextroth and a lot of good Columbus players. It's hard to get confident. I will say the Columbus, the Cleveland, and the Pittsburgh players just welcomed me with open arms when I was there. They were all great.
So what's the first time you remember feeling like I can play with the big boys? I belong here.
Hard to say. I would say when I was 22, Schutze and I won the 6-session Lake Master Pairs, and we both played really well in the finals. And so I was feeling pretty good about that. But then in the Spingold, we lost to Chip Martell, and we didn't play so well. So it goes up and down like the market. And the funny thing about the LN pairs was Ken was an in player, didn't like match points. So we were looking for, there were 2 Swiss teams, so we were going to play them, but we couldn't find any teammates. So we just decided to practice for the Spingold in the LN pairs. So we almost didn't play it.
You're 22 and you win one of the premier events.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get fixed a lot in the finals, so we were kind of lucky like that.
Right. But, I mean, that's got to be a huge confidence boost at 22.
Until I played poorly against Chip in the Spingold.
Okay. And, what were some other early successes you remember?
24, I won the mixed teams in the Spingold. And then about a year later, I moved to Chicago to trade. I still won a few things, but between trading and then getting married, having a son, and then having a trading firm and eventually a small clearing firm, I wasn't in the bridge that much for years. I would play, but I'd miss some nationals. But I used to be on the phone while I was at the bridge table trading, and it might have been a little rude, but it was allowed, and I tried to not be real loud about it. So the focus wasn't there. And then when I stopped being a floor trader, that helped a lot.
What brought you to Chicago to trade? So many bridge players were on the Amex at that point.
Well, I had a job starting in a couple months at Arthur Young in Pittsburgh as an accountant. That I went to Chicago for a tournament, and I went to see Mark Wolfinger, who was from Akron, Ohio, on the floor to see what the options exchange was like. I had no idea this was going to happen, but he offered me a job to learn how to trade and become a trader, and it's like, well, how can I turn this down? In the old days, before things got computerized and it was more the individual traders than the firms, was you couldn't wait to go to sleep at night to wake up and go trade in the morning.
You really enjoyed it that much?
Well, it was great. But then when the computers came along and the big firms came along, it was tougher. It was still fun, but it wasn't the same.
Why do bridge players make good option traders?
Well, they don't all. If they're good with risk and they have the mind for bridge, then they're probably going to be a good options trader because there's a lot of crossover. But if they don't have the risk set in their mind, they'll make a lot of money and they'll give it back. You have to have certain understanding of risk.
Why options rather than stocks for bridge players? What's the difference?
Options is mathematical. Stocks is charting and analytical work. Options it's a game. And before the computers got good, it was your versus the other traders on the floor. And a lot of them weren't very good. They were guys that were down there at the beginning of the exchange and they inventoried everything. So if they bought something for $1 and they could sell it at $1.50, they'd do it, even if it was worth $2. So it's a game. It's just a game, but the stakes are higher. You lose it, go fish. So they're not going to take your bank account. So, but it was great down there. And, I owe a lot to coming to Chicago. I have a lot of friends that I might not have met. And more importantly, I met my wife, and I might not have met her from Pittsburgh, and I certainly wouldn't have my son Sam. So besides doing something I love, there were even better benefits from coming here. But I'm a small town person. I grew up in Pittsburgh and Steubenville, Ohio, and I always tell people Chicago's a great place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live here. Though it's not so bad. But I'm just still not over the smaller town mentality. I mean, I just really enjoy going back to Pittsburgh and Steubenville. It's different, but I love the city.
When you got to the point that you were hiring traders, did you try to find bridge players?
Yeah, and they were almost all bridge players. Not all of them, but I hired too many. And, I figured if I lost on these would make it up. So I was giving friends jobs. And it was not only a bad idea, it was at a very tough time where the market was not moving much. And so one year, I think all of them lost. It was 20-some, except for Bart Bramley made some money that year. But I think he was the only one at that point.
How much are you trading these days?
Not much, a little here and there, mainly biotech stocks. And, still keeps me interested. I consult for a few companies. I on some boards. I still have a decent amount going on here, but you can't trade on the floor now as an individual. All the individual traders that wanted to stay in the business had to go to big firms.
When did you realize that professional bridge might be an option?
I was doing it a little bit in my, certainly after I won the LM pairs, and it wasn't anything I wanted to do. So, I was static. I wasn't playing bridge very well because one of the things I was going to do with the accounting firm was play bridge with, if I could bring in clients and play bridge with them, I was going to do that. And so I wasn't playing very well. And then I got this job offer, and I show up for the San Francisco Nationals. And I all of a sudden started playing well. And I think I was just in a rut because I didn't want to do that for a living back then. But it turned out I had more time after I retired from trading in the clearing firm. And so I got back into it with George Jacobs. And, one of the other problems with trying to play and not be on a pro team is it's hard to round up good teams. Everybody wants the money now. So we had a nice little team way back when. It was John Sutherland, wonderful man, great player, Larry Cohen, and Ron Gerard. And, we had just won the Spingold, but, everybody wanted to play pro. So our team kind of split up, except for me. So it was hard to keep a team together.
How did playing with George come around?
Well, we were friends, and we were almost neighbors. We lived about a mile away, and I didn't play much with him. I played a pair event, and I teased George about it. Playing match points with him, half the boards are tops or bottoms before the bidding gets to me in the first round. And George, he's a good player with a big imagination. It started out well once he realized that he wasn't as good as he thought he was, and he learned a lot and improved a lot. But he said, I changed his bridge life. I played with him in a club game, and I don't know if I should talk about it, but he does. We had like a 186 in a club game, and he asked me to become his regular partner. And it's like, you do realize you blew about 40 or 50 match points. We should have had 220 something. And I sort of lectured him for 2 straight hours in his car in our driveway. My wife, Martha, she saw us come into the driveway. Then a couple hours later, she wakes up, and it's like, what are you guys still doing out there? But George claims I changed his life, and he went from wanting to be right to wanting to learn. And he improved quickly with that. We won a bunch of tournaments, and many of them he played really, really well.
What did the initial weeks and months with Nick look like as you guys tried to get up to speed and put a world-class partnership together?
When we first started?
Yeah.
Wow, I made a huge mistake. I said, I'll just play what you and Dick played. So I get like 240 pages of notes. It's like, you got to be kidding me. There are things in there that maybe came up once in their, call it 20-year partnership. And, they would just throw it in the notes. So Nick said, well, blue out what you don't want to play. And so I started going through it, and my response was, my computer doesn't have enough blue to get rid of what I want. So as you know, we're on like iteration 288, keep changing it. And Eric Kokish helped us a lot. So we've been slowly reducing the notes. And what are we down to, Adam? Like 100 pages now?
Somewhere around there, I think.
Yeah, I'd still like to get rid of about 30 or 40 more. And Nick might even have a higher number than that. There's like 3rd and 4th round bids that are just never going to come up. And when you read through the notes, especially for me, it's really tiresome to go over all those things.
So before a tournament starts, like a big tournament, when do you start ramping up your preparation? What does that look like for you?
Well, as far as the notes go, whenever you send us the new updated version, and if it's too close, if it's within 2 weeks, I just go over a few things that come up. I'm not going to even try and go through the whole thing. But yeah, I like to start at least 2 weeks early, and then I'll do a slow review on the stuff that I could possibly forget, and then I just do a real quick skim, like, with both eyes, like that, of the stuff I know. It just reinforces it. When you send us the updated version, if it's earlier than 2 weeks, I start reviewing. If it's within 2 weeks of the tournament, I do minimal work because I think it detracts.
Do you and Nick, beyond the notes, ramp up preparation before a big tournament?
No, the only thing we do differently is when we play at night, we don't go out of our way to create wish tricks. Nick is very big on the wish tricks.
He loves the wish trick.
Yeah. He loves to tell a story. He played with Norbert Kramer like 40 years ago. And on the first hand, they did a grand slam. And the opponent led the ace of trumps against 7 of their suit. And it went ace, 2, 3, 4. Norbert stands up and hollers wish trick. I mean, that's almost how Nick feels. I'm sure he'd much rather make the grand slam, but he loves wish tricks.
In a big event in the Spingold, if you have kind of an opportunity for a wish trick that would be the wrong signal, does he want you to do it?
No.
Okay, good.
But I have to apologize afterwards. Sorry about the wish trick. That's the only time he gets upset. But no, that's where we start like 2 weeks in advance, where we just don't do artificial wish tricks. If we're playing at night and somebody leads like the jack from dummy and you play the ace and they unblock with the king for some reason, you have to drop the queen. So that we don't do close to a tournament.
What about at the tournament? What does your routine look like? What do you do to really get to the table playing your best?
Well, it depends where. I like, and Nick does it now, even though he doesn't like being in the sun. If we have a time change, we get out in the sun in the morning for a good 15 minutes. And, we try and wake up at the same time. But you want to have your circadian rhythms working well. And the quickest way is sun and going to bed or waking up. Going to bed isn't as important, at least for me. I'll play better on no sleep than I will on, say, 8.5, 9 hours. Once I get into that relaxation mode, it's just over for me. And I talked to a sports doctor about that, and he said it's the same thing for athletes. So I think they're getting better at this, but I think sometimes these athletes, when they go out west or from west to east, their sleep cycles are a lot different. Whether you're an athlete or a bridge player or maybe even a poker player, you want to be on the same schedule and you don't want to oversleep. And so I make sure that we both don't overdo it. So our morning routine is I have Nick pick a time he wants to be up by. So say it's 8 o'clock. So we always have a suite with a bedroom on each side of the suite. So I'll open up our door and my dog runs up, jumps on the bed, and starts kissing him to wake him up every morning.
Maz is a vital member of the team.
Yeah, she wakes up Nick every morning, but I think it's important to be getting up at the same time and not oversleeping. And when you have a time change, you want to have the first thing you want to do, and you can brush your teeth and stuff like that, but is get out in the sun. And it's harder. Like I've been to London a couple times, and I don't adjust there most of the time because when I've been there, there's no sun. It's just gloomy and dark. I think it's the sun. That you don't get enough through the clouds to make a difference. So, but that's the only time I have had a problem. I've been to China and Europe, even Iceland, and I adjust the first day doing those things. But London, that's been a problem a few times.
What's your ideal amount of sleep?
It used to be 5 to 6 hours, and now it's 6 to 7.
And that's what you get at home.
Yes.
If I get 8 or 9 at home, it's okay if I get 8 or 9 in the tournament.
I don't know.
You think I might be sleeping too much?
We're all different.
Yeah.
You'll know if you start waking up after 7 hours of sleep at a tournament and you're playing better, then you're oversleeping. Maybe, a couple hours sleep will turn you from a top player into the world's greatest player. So until you try it, you won't know.
I'll try it. I'm trying to try everything this year. All right, so once you get acclimated and the time zone doesn't feel like an issue, you're midway through the tournament, you're still waking up and walking every morning?
Yeah, especially with, my dog. But we're moving, and, it's not always early in the morning. But when I'm at home, I wake up, I have an infrared light next to me right now. And so I try and get 20 minutes of that every morning as soon as I get up. And I think that helps. I think it's healthy. We don't get enough sun, get so worried about skin cancer, but I think that there's a happy medium. That's my opinion. Again, it depends upon the person. We're all different, and we're all different with the sleep. You got to figure out what works best for you. But if you're getting 8 to 9 hours at a tournament, I'm guessing it's too much.
Do you have a couple guys on your team who I think would be on anyone's short list of like best in the world? What do you think sets those guys apart? And I'm talking individually, like you have a couple partnerships that would be on that list as well, but I'm just talking individually.
They all have a little bit different skill set, but they're all great, and they do certain things better than others. And the other thing is sometimes players are, they're playing great for a while and they have a little down, but their downs aren't very bad. Here's an example. Now, I don't know how much it applies to my teammates, but I'll do another baseball example. Steve Carlton said that the great pitchers only have their good stuff maybe 8 to 10 times a year. And that's when they used to start 40 games a year. I'm 30 now. And he said the key to being a top pitcher is knowing how to pitch when you don't have your great stuff. And I think that applies at bridge. Okay, if you're trying to play like Zia, okay, you better have your good stuff or it's not going to work out. If you're not thinking 100% clearly, you need to stay kind of in your limits. And so we all have different days that we wake up and or periods of time, where we play much better. That's one of the reasons I think, if you took a poll of who the top player in the world was, you'd probably have 500 people that were insulted that they weren't on there. But there are many, many people that can play great for a week or 2 weeks or a month. But it's also key to, when the match is on the line and you don't have your good stuff, to know it and not play poorly. So I think that's an important trait.
Do you think that what differentiates them is that their A game is better than other people's A game? They're in their A game more often than others, or their B game is better than other people?
It's hard to say about the A game, whether theirs is better. I mean, I haven't played with a whole lot of people. Their A games are all great, but their A games are very consistent, and their B games are really good too. So, they don't drop down. They may, for a board, anybody can drop down to, a C or a D, but they're very consistent.
How often do they bring back results that you're like, holy cow, they are good?
It's harder and harder to have, when you're playing a good team, it's harder and harder to have those holy cow results because the opponents don't make as many errors as they did 20 years ago. I would say their games are holy cow. They play, really well, but they may not be up 50 imps or even 30 imps. They just do everything right.
To what do you attribute that overall increase in quality over the last 15, 20, 30 years?
As the competition gets better, everybody gets better.
Why has the competition gotten better?
Well, we have a lot of foreign players that are playing now, and they start them young. We're trying to do it here, with the colleges. Mitch Dunitz has a charity where not only does his charity pays teachers or students that teach bridge, he pays the students to learn bridge, and it's been pretty effective. But in other countries, they start them young, and it's a big thing. They don't have baseball and soccer as much growing up and all the other sports, and they really are getting their kids early, and so the players are coming out better and even younger. And I think, the better the competition, the better everybody improves. The thing I've noticed most in the last 20 or 30 years, well, let's say the least to start out with, is the declare play's always been pretty good. You play in a world championship, even the pairs that aren't great players, they're pretty good declares. But the bidding methods have gotten much better, especially competitive bidding. And defense has improved a lot. So the defense has enormously improved from the other countries. So when they come over here, you have to play better, or it just doesn't work. It's just like a sport. How good can you get playing tennis or ping pong when you're playing somebody that isn't as good as you or in your range? But when you start playing better players, you not only learn from them, but you get the experience playing against them. It turns out I wasn't a very good ping pong player, but I thought I was because nobody could beat me in my junior high school or high school. And my cousin Tommy comes to town, who was like 10 years earlier a national champion. He was in medical school, and he told me he hadn't played in a year and a half. So I'm thinking, I'm going to kick his butt. The first game, and this opened my eyes. The first game, he beat me 21-3. So I was king of a little pond, okay? So I thought I was good, and I wasn't. It's sort of the same thing in bridge. You play in your local duplicate, you might get a lot better than any of them, but you're just not going to make the move you need to make if you want to become, call it a U.S. national player. The competition is making bridge better here and everywhere. So, the old world championships in the pair event, you just did everything, and you'd probably make it because they'd miss defend. Even if it was going down, they'd miss defend. That doesn't happen anymore. So the defense has improved a bunch, and the competitive bidding has improved a bunch. Slam bidding, probably, but I don't think in comparison to the others.
How do you think the defense has improved? Have signaling methods improved? Have opening leads improved?
Well, the opening leads improved a lot for a while there until they caught some of these pairs cheating. I think the signaling has improved. There wasn't much signaling as, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I know when I was playing, this opened my eyes. I was about 19, maybe. I played with Jeff Starr, who was a top player from Detroit. And we played a regional, and he said he really complimented my declare play, but he basically said that if I said I was lost on defense, that would be an underbid. And it's like, I didn't know really much about signaling. I mean, there was suit preference when, like, you were giving a partner a rough. You might give count. He has king, queen, jack, sixth, and no entry. But it wasn't part of the game. None of my partners signaled back then. Or if they did, I didn't notice it. some things you just have to wake up and, see there's another level. That's what I love about bridge. Anybody can play it. The people that have some talent that want to learn, they play, they analyze things that they did wrong, and it's like all of a sudden, oh my God, there's this whole level out there that I didn't realize that I'm not doing. Just, keep improving. Even Bob Hammond, who's like 92, he reviews every hand, and he claims he always learns something from the session. You need to have that attitude to get to your maximum potential. So you don't have to be the most talented player in the world to be a very good player, but you have to try and do all the right little things like counting, okay? And then that's a little lower level. You limit yourself on things. You limit yourself when you're always looking at from your vantage point and not your opponents or more importantly, your partners. So, you have to do a lot of things. It's not one thing.
How has your game changed over the last 20, 30 years?
Well, some of it is that, I didn't have a child in the house that I, would be coaching baseball and various things. And some of it was I stopped trading and I was out of running a clearing business. So that really helped. But I just keep learning things. When I started playing with Nick, I think between him and Kokish, I learned a lot about bidding. Card play. I mean, I'm always trying to learn things. But that's a little less. But I would say the most improvement is the last 15 years playing with Nick and having coach.
All right. Well, this has been so great, Ralph. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed working with you and Nick so much. I've learned a lot from it.
We enjoy the work you do, and I'm happy to, talk to you about all this. Thank you for the contribution that you're making to the bridge world.
Well, thank you. I'm learning a lot, and I'm glad other people are getting something out of it.